Hello all, welcome back. I thought today I would rank every movie in the Fox X-MenVerse that started in the year 2000, which is kind of the original MCU, which I have a lot of fond memories of and brought out some of my favourite Marvel movies of all times. So yeah, let's start ranking them from worst to best. Last place, New Mutants. A very bland, boring movie with the only upside that I can remember was the great casting of Anna Taylor-Joy as Magic, which I hope they bring back one day, as I thought she was perfect for the role and she's now a bit of a star. But yeah, that's all I can say about this movie, very forgettable. 13th place, X-Men Dark Phoenix. Yeah, this movie's just about solid and just about works, but barely. The young X-Men cast in the previous prequel movies are good as always, but some of them, not all, are wasted. The Phoenix itself is well portrayed, actually showing the fiery Phoenix Force, but the aliens, villains, they suck. Action and costumes are decent. I appreciate the X-Men having their new X-Men comic costumes. Nice throwback to one of my favourite runs. And the end train action scene was easily the highlight, and a pretty awesome scene, to be fair. 12th place, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Not good, but better than the previous entry, with Wolverine and Sabretooth being standouts as brothers turned enemies. Plot is decent enough as a prequel Wolverine origin with some crowd-pleasing moments and some awesome action. However, the special effects really let it down, and what they did with Deadpool was and let's not speak of that again. 11th place, Deadpool. This might be a hot take, it being so low, but I think this movie is just decent and very close to being good, but not quite there. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is literally perfect on every metric. He has a fun side cast and the plot's pretty decent as well, but the film is held back by the villain Ajax, who is just bland and unmemorable, and I always say every superhero movie needs a good villain. The action, costumes, effects and soundtrack are all awesome, and it works as a nice little Valentine's Day love story as well. Joint 8th, 9th and 10th place, the X-Men original trilogy. Probably a hot take grouping these together, but like the Spider-Man trilogy, I grew up with these, and I think it makes a good structured trilogy, and watching them all on the bounce works out quite well. So let's start with the first X-Men movie. It's a good intro, introducing the great Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey, Professor X and Magneto, all perfect casting. It's a good fun, average superhero movie by today's standards. Action, effects and soundtrack are all good. The costumes for the time, being the leather costumes, worked. It was awesome to see the X-Men battle the Brotherhood in the climax at Liberty Island. It was such an awesome action scene at the time. Then the second X-Men movie, X-Men 2, is probably the best movie of the trilogy in terms of writing, with the X-Men and Magneto's Brotherhood working together to battle William Stryker and Weapon X. Wolverine's easily the standout as we learn more about him and his origin, and the next generation of X-Men, the younger ones like Rogue and Iceman, get to stand out a little bit. More good action, effects and costumes and soundtrack. Overall, just more good stuff. And then the third X-Men movie, X-Men The Last Stand, the most crowd-pleasing and epic fun movie of the trilogy in my opinion, with a perfect epic final showdown of the X-Men, both the older generation and newer, battling the Brotherhood and Phoenix. And the Phoenix, well, not a perfect adaptation and certainly OP, which I liked. However, some characters are done dirty and wasted, in particular Cyclops, Rogue and Mystique. They were really screwed over, didn't like that. However, it's overall a good story with really good action, best of the trilogy, effects, costume and soundtrack are all good, and it's overall a satisfying trilogy ender. And in 7th place we have X-Men Apocalypse. Aside from the top two entries on this list, this is easily the most epic, crowd-pleasing entry, with the young X-Men, who are awesome, battling the villain Apocalypse. Professor X, Magneto and Quicksilver, who was another epic slow-motion super speed scene, even better than his previous one, are all the standouts, and Apocalypse is just fine, but it should have been a multi-movie CGI villain like Thanos, perhaps in 2 movies which I would have called X-Men Age of Apocalypse Part 1, where he won at the end and changed the timeline, and X-Men Age of Apocalypse Part 2, where it's based off the Age of Apocalypse story, and it's a resistance in that timeline fighting Apocalypse to change events of the past. Would have been awesome. Anyways, I digress. The action effects and soundtrack are all good, with the young X-Men's costumes and the final scene being the best up to that point. And the ending itself I think was perfect, with the original X-Men assembled, setting up the original trilogy, bar Wolverine, who still has an awesome cameo / action scene, and Professor X and Magneto having a conversation that references back to the conversation they had in the first X-Men movie, which I thought was just perfect, and this should have been the end of the Fox X-Men franchise, in my opinion. We didn't really need Dark Phoenix. Joint 5th and 6th, The Wolverine and The Logan movie. Two very good solo Wolverine movies I enjoyed just as much, so let's break them down. The Wolverine is an awesome movie based off the first Wolverine solo comic with its Japanese plot, and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, as always, being awesome, and he fights villains Silver Samurai and the Viper, who are good villains, with some amazing action, in particular the bullet train sequence, and a great soundtrack as well. Also, the after credit scene setting up Days of Futures Past was just awesome and perfect, and had me so hyped at the time. Then Logan, an emotional send-off for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and as well as Professor X, both being standouts in terms of the character and their acting. They were both just Oscar worthy in my opinion. Villains were a bit bland. I did like the evil Wolverine clone and the fact that the son of a Weapon X scientist was the main villain. However, Sabretooth should have been the head of the Avengers to make the Wolverine trilogy come full circle, in my opinion. The action was awesome and brutal, with the awesome soundtrack to go along with it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, X-23, Wolverine's sort of daughter, was a standout too. It was a bit of a passing of the torch, in a way, for a perfect ending. My really big cry for this movie though, that stops it from being in the great to God tier, would be, aside from missing Sabretooth of course, is I wish it had taken more from the Old Man Logan comic, as that is my favourite Wolverine comic and one of my most favourite comics ever. And it took a little influence, but not enough in my opinion. I'm a comic guy at heart. However, a movie later down this list makes up for it. Deadpool and Wolverine. 4th place, X-Men First Class. The first great movie on this list, an X-Men movie in general, and as an X-Men trilogy prequel works so well, with a young Professor X and Magneto meeting and becoming friends and eventually enemies, perfectly cast. And I also love the young Beast and Mystique and their relationship, and the other mutants are okay as well. Sebastian Shaw works as a villain with the Hellfire Club, who returns to the future Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and the plot interwoven with the 1960s Cuban Missile Crisis really worked for me and made it a really great movie with some spy aspects as well. The action is better than the original trilogy with great effects, slightly better costumes and a good soundtrack, and even Wolverine has a good fun short cameo too. In 3rd place we have Deadpool 2, which is great, improves on everything on the nearly good first movie. Deadpool is awesome as always, and he even briefly joins the X-Men, which was fun, and there's also a nice little X-Men Blink and You Miss It cameo. He battles Cable, who travels from the apocalyptic future to kill a young mutant, and Cable makes for an awesome, good, badass villain, and then is turned ally towards the end of the movie. And also they battle the Juggernaut, who they nailed, and is a lot better than the portrayal in X-Men The Last Stand. And also, as a bonus, we get the X-Force introduced, which was hilarious and an awesome scene. And yep, this movie's so high up, I just think it's one of the most watchable superhero movies ever, with a great story, great action, and it's just a blast throughout. In 2nd place, we have Deadpool and Wolverine. First god tier movie on this list, and I know it's a bit of a cheat because it's an MCU movie rather than a Fox movie, but it still basically counts, come on. And I love this movie. It gave me stuff as a fan I've wanted for years. Deadpool and Wolverine are awesome as always, with Wolverine finally getting his signature yellow costume with the cowl, something I've waited for over 20 years growing up. And as a comic fan, their dynamic and their fights were awesome throughout. I want to give props to the fan service moments, like having a brief Wolverine Hulk scene, which I appreciated as Wolverine's first appearance was in a Hulk comic as a villain fighting in the snow. Also little things like Henry Cavill as Wolverine and the dig at DC, which is well deserved, and also seeing Logan in his Age of Apocalypse get up in, I'm assuming, an Age of Apocalypse world. Also, I appreciated that it took a lot from the Old Man Logan comic, which I've said is my favourite Wolverine comic. And also it had those awesome multiverse extended cameos with people like Chris Evans' Johnny Storm, the OG Sabretooth, which should have happened in Logan, Pyro, X-23, Gambit, Elektra and OG Blade. Cassandra Nova made for an awesome villain, very powerful, and the movie just rocks on all fronts. In top place, X-Men Days of Futures Past. Easily best X-Men movie, uniting both the original trilogy X-Men cast and the young First Class cast in an epic crossover adapting the comic of the same name, but improving it in my opinion and making Wolverine the main character with other heroes and villains being standouts like Professor X and Magneto, both young and old. The Sentinels make for amazing villains, both retro and the future, with the action, costumes, effects and soundtrack all round amazing, and a perfect ending to round out this amazing movie. Also want to note that I'm grouping in the X-Men Days of Futures Past Director's Cut, aka the Rogue Cut in, as that's basically the same movie with some alternate scenes, some extra scenes, in particular based around the character Rogue. And you know what? There is one sequence from it that is worth noting, and that's when Professor X, Magneto and Iceman rescue Rogue from the X-Mansion in the future. That scene was awesome. And once again, thank you all for tuning in. I'd love to hear your rankings and opinions on the video in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at TheEasyNerd, and I'll see you all next time.